The letter arrived on a Tuesday. It was thin, flimsy, innocuous enough to be mistaken for junk mail. I almost tossed it into the recycling bin with the pizza coupons and the credit card offers that promised a life of interest-free bliss. But something about the bank's logo, stark and severe in the top left corner, gave me pause. "We have important information regarding your account," it said, "urgent action required." I slit the envelope open with my thumb, a faint tremor of unease starting in my gut. I'm meticulous with my finances, a freelance graphic designer can't afford not to be. Every invoice is tracked, every receipt filed, every penny accounted for. My credit score is a thing of beauty, a testament to years of discipline and delayed gratification. So an urgent notice was odd. The single sheet of paper inside was a demand for payment, not for my credit card, which I paid off every month, or my mortgage, which was automatically debited. This was for a personal loan, a loan for $85,000. My breath hitched in my chest. The number seemed to vibrate on the page, unreal and monstrous. $85,000. $85,000. There was a mistake. There had to be a mistake. This was someone else's mail, a clerical error, a glitch in the system. I read the name again, Alara Vance, my name. I read the address, my address. I read the account number, and a cold dread began to seep into my bones, colder than the winter air outside my window. I didn't recognize the number, but it was tied to me. The letter stated the loan was in default, 3 missed payments. The penalties were already piling up, a cascade of late fees and interest charges that made my head spin. My world, so carefully constructed, so meticulously ordered, tilted on its axis. I sank onto my sofa, the letter trembling in my hand. The silence of my small house was suddenly deafening, amplifying the frantic drumbeat of my heart. Who could do this? How could this happen? I cycled through the possibilities, each one more absurd than the last. Identity theft by a stranger, a sophisticated online scam. But they had my address, my details, enough to get past a bank's security. My mind was a frantic blur of passwords and security questions, a frantic search for a breach I couldn't find. And then, a memory surfaced, unwelcome and sharp. Liam, my brother, Liam, sitting right here on this sofa 3 months ago. He'd been admiring my new home office setup. He'd asked about my work, about the new client I'd landed. He'd picked up my mail from the coffee table, casually flicking through it while I made us coffee. "Sis, you're so organized," he'd said, smiling that charming, disarming smile of his. "I wish I had my life together like you." No. I shook my head, trying to dislodge the thought. No, not Liam, he was irresponsible. Yes, / a dreamer who never quite followed through. He borrowed $20 here, 50 there, and always promised to pay it back with a sheepish grin. But this was different. This wasn't just irresponsible. This was a violation, a betrayal on a scale I couldn't comprehend. But the thought, once planted, began to grow roots, choking out every other possibility. He was the only one who had been here, the only one who could have seen my driver's license on the desk, my social security card in the folder I'd foolishly left out, the only one I would have trusted enough to be careless around. The cold dread in my stomach turned into a sickening knot of certainty. My own brother, my charming, smiling, reckless brother, had just destroyed my life. The drive to Liam's apartment was a blur of traffic lights and gray city streets. My hands were clamped so tightly on the steering wheel my knuckles were white. The loan default notice was on the passenger seat beside me, its presence a toxic weight in the car. Each word on that paper was a separate accusation, a nail in the coffin of the trust I'd always had in my brother. I kept replaying that last visit in my head, searching for signs I'd missed. His unusual interest in my financial paperwork, the way he'd lingered by my desk, the questions that seemed so innocent at the time. Wow, is that all it takes to get a mortgage? They must really trust you. At the time, I'd felt a small bloom of pride. Now, it felt like I was the world's biggest fool. His apartment building was a shabby low-rise with a flickering fluorescent light in the lobby. It smelled of stale cigarette smoke and damp concrete. It was a world away from the bright, airy home I had worked so hard for. The home that was now, apparently, collateral for his secrets. I took a deep breath, the acrid air burning my lungs, and pressed the buzzer for his unit. It took him a long time to answer. I was about to buzz again when the speaker crackled to life. Yeah, who is it? His voice was thick with sleep, even though it was early afternoon. Liam, it's me, I said, my own voice tight and strained. Let me up. There was a pause. What's wrong? Just open the door, Liam. The buzzer sounded, a harsh, grating noise. I pushed the heavy door open and started up the 3 flights of stairs, my anger a hot, surging tide in my chest. By the time I reached his landing, he was standing in his open doorway, rubbing his eyes. He was wearing a rumpled t-shirt and boxer shorts, his hair a mess. He looked young and lost, and for a fleeting second, my resolve wavered. This was my little brother, the boy I'd taught to ride a bike. Then I saw the new gaming console hooked up to his television, the designer sneakers kicked off by the door, and my anger came roaring back. What did you do, Liam? I asked, my voice shaking. I walked past him into the apartment, holding up the letter. He blinked, feigning confusion. What are you talking about? What is that? Don't play dumb with me, I snapped, my voice rising. The bank, Liam, a loan for $85,000. A loan that is now in default. A loan that has my name, my signature, all over it. His face went pale. The charming, boyish facade crumbled, replaced by a flicker of pure panic. He ran a hand through his messy hair, avoiding my eyes. Look, it's a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding, I laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. How do you misunderstand forging my signature on a legal document for an amount that could bankrupt me? I was going to pay it back, he insisted, his voice getting louder, more desperate. I was going to handle it before you ever found out. I hit a snag. It's a temporary thing, a snag? I stepped closer to him, my whole body vibrating with a rage I'd never felt before. A snag is forgetting to pay a phone bill, Liam. This is fraud. This is a crime. You used me. You stole from me. He finally looked at me, his eyes welling up with tears. The tears that always worked on our parents. The tears that always made me want to wrap him in a hug and tell him it would be okay. But not this time. I'm so sorry, Al, he whispered, his voice breaking. I was desperate. I didn't know what else to do. Please don't tell Mom and Dad. We can fix this. I promise, just give me a little more time. He reached for me, for my arm, but I flinched away as if burned. The plea to keep our parents out of it was the final twist of the knife. He wasn't just trying to save himself. He was trying to isolate me, to make this my burden alone. He wanted me to be his co-conspirator after the fact, to drown quietly so he could stay afloat. Time, I repeated, my voice dangerously low. You've had 3 months of time, Liam. And in that time, you've done nothing but dig this hole deeper. My name, my credit, my future is on the line because of you. And you're asking for more time? He stood there, weeping, the picture of pathetic remorse. But all I could see was the liar standing in front of me. The thief who shared my blood. The brother who had looked me in the eye and smiled while planning to ruin me. I left his apartment in a daze. His pathetic apologies and desperate promises echoed in my ears. A meaningless cacophony against the screaming panic in my own mind. I'll fix it, Al, I swear, he'd cried as I walked out the door. Don't do anything rash. Rash. He thought protecting myself from financial ruin was rash. The drive home was worse than the drive there. The anger was still there, a hot coal in my stomach, but it was now overlaid with a thick blanket of despair. What was I supposed to do? The question hammered at me with every beat of the traffic. He was my brother, my stupid, reckless, charming little brother, our mother's favorite. Our father's secret disappointment and greatest hope. If I did what I knew I had to do, I wouldn't just be going up against Liam, I'd be detonating a bomb in the heart of my family. I spent the rest of the day in a state of suspended animation. I sat on my sofa, the offending letter on the coffee table like a venomous snake. I tried to work, opening my laptop to the half-finished logo design for a new client. The vibrant colors and clean lines felt like a mockery of the chaos that had engulfed my life. I closed the laptop. I thought about his tear-streaked face, the genuine panic in his eyes. He wasn't a monster. He was just weak and selfish. He saw my stability, my carefully built life, not as something to respect but as a resource to be tapped, a safety net he felt entitled to use, and then cut away once he was done. Had he ever really seen me, or just what I could do for him? The numbers scrolled through my head. $85,000, plus fees, plus interest. It was more than I made in a year. It would take me a decade, maybe more, to pay it off. I would have to sell my house. The house I had saved for since I was 21, the one tangible symbol of my success, of my independence. My credit would be destroyed. I'd be blacklisted. No more freelance work from major corporations that ran credit checks. No more peace of mind. And for what? To protect him, to enable him to swallow the poison so he wouldn't have to taste it. I thought about our parents, our mother who would weep and say, "He didn't mean it, Alara, he's just a boy." Our father, who would sigh with disappointment and then ask me what I could do to help fix his mess. They would close ranks around him, their prodigal son, and I would be the cold, unforgiving daughter who put paperwork before family. They would never understand. They would never see the theft for what it was. They would only see my betrayal. The sun began to set, casting long, distorted shadows across my living room. The house felt cold, empty. In that moment, I felt an isolation so profound it was a physical ache in my chest. I was completely and utterly alone in this. Liam hadn't just stolen my money and my name. He had stolen my family from me before the battle had even begun. My phone buzzed on the table. It was Liam. I ignored it. It buzzed again. A text message. "Elle, please talk to me. We can work this out. / Another one. Don't ruin my life over this. I'm begging you, ruin his life." The audacity of it was breathtaking. He had set my life on fire and was complaining about the smoke getting in his eyes. And that's when the despair began to recede, replaced by something new, a cold, hard resolve. It settled deep in my bones, a steel rod reinforcing my spine. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about respect. It was about my future. It was about refusing to be the sacrificial lamb for his mistakes. He had made his choice when he picked up that pen and forged my name. Now I had to make mine. The next 24 hours were a private hell of my own making. I didn't sleep. I paced my house from room to room, a caged animal in my own home. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that damned letter, demand for payment. Then, I'd see Liam's face. Not as the crying boy in the apartment, but the smiling, charming brother who had sat on my couch, plotting. The two images warred in my mind. Brother versus betrayer. Love versus survival. My phone was a constant source of anxiety. A barrage of texts from Liam, each one more desperate than the last. They ranged from pleading "I'll do anything," Elle, to manipulative "you're tearing this family apart," to vaguely threatening "you have no idea what you're getting into." I read each one, a fresh wave of sickness washing over me. / This was who he was. Not the person I thought I knew, but this desperate, cornered stranger. I pulled up my online banking portal, my fingers trembling as I typed in my password. I stared at my savings account, the numbers representing years of 7-day work weeks, of saying no to vacations, of living below my means. It was my emergency fund, my freedom fund, my future. I did a quick calculation. Even if I drained every single penny I had, it wouldn't be enough to cover even half of the fraudulent loan. I would be left with nothing, and still be in debt. The sheer injustice of it all was a physical weight. Why should I have to liquidate my life's work to cover his crime? Why should my future be the price for his recklessness? The answer was simple. It shouldn't. The conflict wasn't rational. It was emotional. It was the lifetime of being the responsible older sister. The one who cleaned up messes, who mediated fights, who made sure everyone was okay. / It was the ingrained familial duty, the unspoken rule that you protect your own no matter the cost. But the cost was too high this time. The cost was me. I thought about the life I wanted, a simple life. The ability to take on creative projects I was passionate about without panicking about the bills. / The freedom to travel someday. The security of knowing I could handle a real emergency, like a medical issue or a family crisis. Liam's actions threatened to burn that entire future to the ground. He had placed his immediate, selfish wants over my entire life's plan. By dawn, the exhaustion had clarified things in a way that frantic pacing never could. There were only two paths. Path 1, I could do what he asked. I could try to work it out. This would involve taking on the debt myself, talking to the bank, begging for a payment plan I couldn't afford. It would mean a decade or more of financial servitude, of resentment festering between me and my brother, of living a life crippled by his choices. It would mean lying to my parents, or bearing their misguided disappointment. It was a slow death. Path 2, I could report the fraud. This path was a declaration of war. It would mean officially, legally, accusing my own brother of a crime. It would shatter my family, possibly forever. It would be ugly and painful, and filled with confrontations I dreaded. But at the end of that path, there was a chance to be whole again. A chance to reclaim my name, my credit, and my future. It was a brutal surgery, but it was a chance at survival. I walked into my kitchen and made coffee, my movements slow and deliberate. The sun was streaming through the window, a new day. I looked at my reflection in the dark screen of my phone. I looked tired. I looked scared. But I also looked determined. I picked up the phone. I didn't call Liam. I didn't call my parents. I googled the number for my bank's main branch. My finger hovered over the call button for a long, silent moment. Then, I pressed it. The choice was made. First National Bank. How can I help you? The voice on the other end of the line was cheerful, professional, and utterly at odds with the storm raging inside me. Hello, I began, my voice catching slightly. I cleared my throat. I need to speak with someone in the fraud department, or a manager. It's about a loan. I can certainly direct you. Miss, may I have your name and account number? Giving her my name felt like a confession. Giving her the fraudulent loan number felt like a betrayal. But I did it. Each digit spoken aloud was a step further down the path I had chosen. There was no turning back now. She put me on hold. The generic instrumental music that played was an absurd soundtrack to the demolition of my family. I felt a wave of nausea and gripped the edge of my kitchen counter for support. What was I doing? Was it too late to hang up? To pretend this was all a terrible dream, Miss Vance? A new voice, this one male and serious, cut through the music. This is Mr. Harrison, the branch manager. My colleague tells me you have a concern about a loan account. Yes, I said, my voice barely a whisper. Yes, I do. Please, tell me what the issue is. His tone was calm, patient, but I could feel the professional wall behind it. I was just another problem to be solved, another file to be processed. And so I told him everything. The words tumbled out of me, a messy, frantic torrent. I told him about the letter, the $85,000, the default notice. I told him I had never applied for this loan, never signed any paperwork, never received any money. I tried to keep my voice steady, to sound credible and sane, not like a hysterical woman on the verge of a breakdown. There was a long pause on the other end when I finished. I could hear the faint clicking of a keyboard. Miss Vance, he said finally, his voice still perfectly even, this is a very serious allegation. I know, I whispered, believe me, I know fraud of this nature, especially involving a family member, can be complicated, I understand. But it wasn't me. I didn't do this, and I can't pay for it. I will be financially ruined. The desperation crept into my voice. No matter how hard I tried to suppress it. Okay, he said, and the word was a small, solid anchor in my sea of panic. Okay, Miss Vance. The first step is for you to come into the bank. We'll need you to sit down with me and our fraud investigator. You will have to provide a statement and sign a formal affidavit of forgery. This document will officially state that you believe your signature was forged, and it will trigger a full internal investigation. Are you prepared to do that? A formal affidavit, an official statement. This was it, the point of no return. This was where I moved from a phone call to a legal accusation. I pictured Liam's face again, the way he'd cried. I pictured my mother's inevitable hysteria, my father's stony disappointment. Miss Vance, Mr. Harrison's voice prodded me gently. I took a deep breath. The image in my head changed. I saw myself in 5 years, buried in debt, selling my house. My dreams turned to dust. I saw the simmering resentment I would feel every time I looked at my brother, at my parents. I saw the version of me that chose silence and submission, and I couldn't stand her. Yes, I said, my voice suddenly clear and strong. Yes, I am very well. Can you be here tomorrow at 10 a.m.? I'll be there, I promised. We hung up. I stood in my silent kitchen for a long time, the receiver still pressed to my ear. I had done it. I had lit the fuse. And all I could do now was wait for the explosion. The bank was an imposing structure of glass and steel, designed to convey an aura of stability and permanence. It felt like walking into a cathedral of commerce. I was 5 minutes early for my 10 o'clock appointment, my stomach churning with a mixture of dread and grim determination. I was dressed in a simple black blazer and slacks, an attempt to project a seriousness I didn't entirely feel. I felt like a child playing dress-up for a grown-up's terrible game. I gave my name to the receptionist, who directed me to a waiting area with plush chairs and bland corporate art. Every tick of the clock on the wall seemed unnaturally loud. I half expected Liam to burst through the doors, to make a scene, to try and stop me, but there was only silence. A few minutes later, a man in a sharp gray suit approached me. He was older, perhaps in his late 50s, with receding, silver hair and intelligent, discerning eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Miss Vance, I'm David Harrison." He shook my hand, his grip was firm and dry. "Thank you for coming in, please follow me." He led me down a quiet hallway, away from the public-facing part of the bank, to a small, windowless conference room. Another man was already seated at the polished table, a thick file open in front of him. He looked younger than Mr. Harrison, with a sterner, more skeptical expression. "This is Mr. Davies, from our internal fraud investigations team," Mr. Harrison said by way of introduction. I sat down opposite them, my hands clasped tightly in my lap. Mr. Davies didn't offer to shake my hand. He just watched me, his gaze analytical. "So, Miss Vance," he began, his voice flat, "you claim that loan account 7B4431 is fraudulent." "I don't claim it," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. "It is fraudulent." Mr. Harrison held up a hand gently. "Mr. Davies is just following procedure, Miss Vance. Let's go through this step by step. We've pulled the original loan application." He slid a sheaf of papers across the table. My stomach clenched. There it was, my name, my address, my date of birth, / all correct, and at the bottom of the page, a signature. A clumsy, amateurish imitation of my own flowing script. It was close enough to pass a cursory glance, but to me, it was a grotesque parody. "That is not my signature," I said, pointing a trembling finger at the line. "We'll need you to provide us with several examples of your genuine signature for a forensic analysis," Mr. Davies said, pushing a blank sheet of paper and a pen towards me. I signed my name 5 times. Each time, my hand was a little steadier. Then came the hard part, the affidavit. Mr. Harrison explained the legal gravity of the document. It was a sworn statement, punishable by law if found to be false. It was my official testimony that a crime had been committed. And then he asked the question I had been dreading. "Miss Vance, an investigation of this nature requires us to pursue all leads. Do you have any idea who might have had access to your personal information? Anyone who might have done this?" The air in the room was thick with unspoken words. They knew. Of course they knew. These things were almost always someone close. A spouse, a child, a sibling. They were waiting for me to say his name. I looked from Mr. Harrison's neutral expression to Mr. Davies's skeptical one. Saying it out loud would make it irreversible. It would turn my brother into a suspect. It would make me the accuser. I swallowed hard. "My brother," I said, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. "His name is Liam Vance." Mr. Davies wrote the name down without a change in his expression. "And what reason would your brother have to do this?" I don't know for sure," I stammered, feeling a sudden, misguided urge to protect him even now. "He's been having some financial trouble. We see this a lot, Miss Vance," Mr. Harrison said, his voice softening for the first time. "I know this is difficult. But you are doing the right thing by reporting it. Our responsibility now is to the bank, and to you, our client. We will investigate this thoroughly." I signed the affidavit. My signature, my real one this time, felt like it was carving a line in the sand. On one side was my old life, my family, my brother. On the other was this new, uncertain future. After I signed it, Mr. Davies closed his file. The meeting was over. As Mr. Harrison walked me back to the lobby, he paused. "The bank will be contacting Mr. Liam Vance as part of our investigation," he said quietly. "I'm telling you this so you can be prepared. These situations can cause significant familial distress. I'm aware," I said numbly. / He gave me a small, sympathetic nod. / "You've done the hardest part. Now let us do our work." I walked out of the bank and into the bright sunlight, feeling as though I had just confessed to a murder. The murder of my own family. The explosion came sooner than I expected. It was a phone call, not from Liam, but from my mother. I was sitting at my desk, staring at a blank design canvas. When her name flashed on the screen, my heart plummeted. I knew what this was. The bank had made their call. I let it ring 3 times before answering, taking a deep breath to steady myself. Hi, Mom, Alara, what have you done? Her voice was tight with a frantic, tearful energy. There was no preamble, no hello, just the accusation. Mom, the bank called Liam, she barreled on, ignoring me. They're accusing him of the most horrible things: fraud, stealing. He's a mess, Alara, an absolute wreck. He said you went to them, that you told them these awful lies. How could you? The injustice of it was a physical blow. They aren't lies, Mom, I said, my voice cold. He forged my signature. He took out a loan for $85,000 in my name. Did he happen to mention that part? He told me it was a misunderstanding, she cried, her voice rising in pitch. He was going to pay it back. He just needed a little help, a little time. Families are supposed to help each other, Alara, not try to send each other to jail. He's your brother. There it was, the word I had been waiting for, brother, as if that single word absolved him of all responsibility and placed all of the burden squarely on my shoulders. And what was I supposed to do, Mom? I asked, my own voice rising to match hers. Let him destroy my life, sell my house, go bankrupt. Is that what helping looks like to you? It's just money, she shrieked, and the phrase cut me to the core. Just money, to her, sitting comfortably in the house my father had paid for. Perhaps it was, to me, it was everything. It was my work, my security, my independence. It's my future, I said quietly, dangerously, and he tried to steal it. You are being so dramatic, so cold, she sobbed. I don't know what's happened to you. Your brother is falling apart because of this, because of you. He's terrified. You need to call the bank, Alara, you need to call them right now and tell them you made a mistake. You need to fix this. She wanted me to lie to the bank, to commit a crime myself by filing a false report, all to protect him from the consequences of his own actions. The hypocrisy was staggering. No, I said. The word was small, but it felt monumental. I'm not going to do that. There was a stunned silence on the other end of the line. I had never said no to her like that before, not with such finality. What did you say? She whispered, as if she couldn't believe her ears. I said, no, Mom. I will not be fixing this. Liam made this mess, and for once in his life, he is going to have to face it. I could hear her sharp intake of breath, followed by a sound that was half sob, half gasp of outrage. I don't know who you are anymore, she said, her voice dripping with venom and disappointment. You have a block of ice where your heart should be. And then she hung up. I stared at my phone, the silence echoing in my ear. The call had been everything I dreaded it would be. She hadn't asked for my side of the story. She hadn't shown an ounce of concern for what had been done to me. Her only concern was for Liam, her son. I was just the daughter, the supporting character in his drama, and I had just refused to play my part. The family bomb had detonated. And I was standing at ground zero, all alone. The days that followed were a study in isolation. A thick, suffocating silence descended from my family. No more calls from my mother, my father, who usually called every Sunday to talk about sports and ask about work, remained silent. It was a coordinated, tactical withdrawal of affection, designed to punish me, to make me feel the full weight of their disapproval. And it worked. Every time my phone was quiet, the silence screamed at me. Liam's communication, however, did not cease. It just mutated. The pleading texts turned nasty, filled with accusations and vitriol. You're dead to me. I hope you're happy. You've destroyed this family. You'll regret this. I stopped reading them, but I didn't delete them. I saved every single one. A growing file of his desperation. Work was my only refuge, but even that was difficult. I'd find myself staring at a color palette or a font choice for minutes on end, my mind a million miles away, replaying conversations with my mother or Mr. Harrison. My creativity, usually so reliable, felt like a distant memory. My income depended on my ability to focus, to deliver for my clients, and I was failing. The fraud was already costing me, even before the final bill came due. It was during a particularly bleak afternoon, as I was struggling to animate a logo that refused to cooperate, that my colleague Ben poked his head into my home office. We shared a few clients and often collaborated on larger projects, communicating mostly through email and video calls. He was in my neighborhood to meet another client and had texted to see if I wanted to grab coffee. I'd almost said no, but the thought of another human conversation that didn't involve accusations was too tempting. Hey, he said softly. You okay? You seem distracted. Ben was a kind soul, a freelance illustrator with a calm demeanor and gentle eyes. We weren't close friends, more like friendly acquaintances who respected each other's work. But in that moment, his simple question, you okay, was almost enough to make me break down. Long week, I mumbled, trying for a casual smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. He leaned against the doorframe, his expression concerned. You've been off your game for a couple of weeks now, Alara. I'm not prying, but if you need to talk, I'm a good listener, and I make excellent coffee. He held up 2 cups from the local cafe. Something inside me just gave way. Maybe it was his kindness. Maybe it was the sheer exhaustion of carrying this burden alone. We sat in my living room, the one that was supposed to be sold to pay off Liam's debts, and I told him everything, the letter, the confrontation, the bank, my mother's phone call. I expected him to be shocked, to be horrified, to not know what to say. Instead, he just listened. He nodded in all the right places, his gaze never leaving my face. When I finally finished, my voice hoarse, he was silent for a moment. Wow. He said quietly, that's a lot. You can say that again, I said, trying to laugh it off. No, I mean, wow. You're incredibly strong, he said, his sincerity catching me off guard. I can't imagine how hard it must have been to make that call to the bank, to stand up to your family like that. You did the right thing, you know, the only thing you could do. Tears pricked my eyes. It was the validation I had been so desperate for, the words my own family should have said to me. To hear them from someone else, an outsider, was both a profound relief and a deep sadness. They hate me, I whispered, my own parents. They think I'm a monster. They're wrong, Ben said firmly. They're scared, and they're probably feeling guilty that they raised a son who could do something like this. It's easier for them to blame you for rocking the boat than to blame him for sinking it, but you're not the monster here, Alara. You're the victim. Don't you ever forget that. He didn't offer easy solutions or platitudes. He just sat with me, bearing witness to my pain. He made me feel less like a pariah and more like a person. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel completely alone. Ben's simple act of kindness was a lifeline, a small flicker of light in the suffocating darkness that had become my life. A week later, I received a call from an unknown number. I almost ignored it, assuming it was Liam using a friend's phone, but a nagging feeling made me answer. Hello, Miss Vance. David Harrison from the bank. My heart leaped into my throat. Mr. Harrison, hello, is there an update? There is, he said. I wanted to keep you informed of our progress. The preliminary analysis of the signatures you provided confirms your assertion. The signature on the loan document is, in the analyst's professional opinion, a forgery. I sank into a chair, relief washing over me so intensely it made me dizzy. So, that's it. It's over. Not quite, he said, his calm voice tempering my excitement. It's a very strong piece of evidence in your favor, but our investigation is still ongoing. We are attempting to retrieve the security footage from the branch on the day the loan was finalized that could provide corroborating evidence. He paused. Miss Vance, your brother has not been cooperative. He retained a lawyer and is refusing to speak with our investigators. Of course he had, a lawyer. He was fighting this. He was actually going to try and fight this. What does that mean for me? I asked. It means the process will be slower. But it doesn't change the facts. The evidence is the evidence. We just have to follow procedure. He sounded weary. I realized he had to deal with this sort of thing all the time. This was just another messy file on his desk. The call left me with a strange mix of emotions. Vindication, because the forgery was confirmed, but also a renewed sense of dread. This wasn't going to be a quiet, internal bank matter. With a lawyer involved, it was becoming a real legal battle. The family pressure ramped up in response. This time, it was my father. He didn't call. He just showed up. I was getting home from a grocery run when I saw his car parked on my street. My stomach dropped. He was leaning against it, his arms crossed, his face set in a mask of stern disappointment. This was his classic tactic, quiet intimidation. Alara, he said as I got out of my car. His voice was low and heavy. Dad, you should have called. Your mother is beside herself. She can't eat. She can't sleep. You're tearing her apart with this. This vendetta, a vendetta. I stared at him, incredulous. Dad, he committed a felony using my name. I'm the victim here. Why can't either of you see that? He's your brother, he said as if that explained everything. He made a mistake, a terrible one. I'll grant you that ... but you don't handle family problems like this. You don't bring in lawyers and banks. You handle it quietly. You clean up the mess and you move on. You're making this a public spectacle. His mess is an $85,000 hole in my life. I shot back, my voice trembling. How am I supposed to clean that up? By selling my home. By working for the next 15 years to pay for his new sneakers, and his video games. My father flinched at the mention of the money. He was a man who understood numbers. We would have helped him, he said, though his voice lacked conviction. We would have helped you both, would you? I challenged, taking a step closer. Or would you have given him a slap on the wrist, bailed him out again, and told me to be a good sister and forgive him? This isn't the first time he's been in trouble, Dad, it's just the biggest. Don't you see a pattern here? Your help has been enabling him his entire life. It's why we're here right now. He had no answer to that. He just looked at me, his face a mixture of anger and a deep, profound sadness. He saw me as the problem, the one who broke the unspoken family code. He didn't see the daughter who had been wronged. He saw the daughter who was refusing to suffer in silence. Call it off. Alara, he said, his voice a low command, whatever it takes. Call the bank and drop it. It's not too late. It is too late, I said, my voice breaking. It was too late the second he signed my name. I walked past him, unlocked my front door, and went inside without looking back. I knew I had just created a rift with my father that might never heal, but I also knew I had spoken the absolute truth. The feeling of being watched started subtly. A car I didn't recognize parked across the street for 2 days straight. A man in a dark hoodie I saw at the grocery store, and then again near my house. I told myself I was being paranoid, that the stress was getting to me. The world was full of coincidences, but the feeling persisted, a low-grade hum of anxiety in the back of my mind. Liam's text messages had stopped a few days after my father's visit, an eerie silence that was somehow more unsettling than his angry tirades. My father's words echoed in my head, "You don't know what you're getting into." Had that been a threat? Driven by a desperate need to understand the why behind all of this, I did something I wasn't proud of. I became a detective in my own life's tragedy. I started with a simple Google search, Liam Vance, nothing. Then I added the name of the city, still nothing. He had almost no online footprint, which was strange for a millennial. I thought about his life, the little details I knew. He'd mentioned working odd jobs, but was always vague. He'd talked about wanting to start a business, a vague e-commerce thing. It all seemed so flimsy, so insubstantial. Where could $85,000 even go? On a hunch, I started digging into public business registries. I tried variations of his name, his initials, nothing. Then I remembered a nickname he'd had as a kid, Leo. I searched for Leo Vance Enterprises, bingo. A registered sole proprietorship established 6 months ago. Address AP.O. Box status, dissolved. My blood ran cold. Dissolved. / a business that had started and failed in the span of a few months. A business no one in the family knew anything about. I kept digging, falling down a rabbit hole of online forums and business complaint websites. I found a trail of angry comments on a supplier's forum. A Leo Vance had placed a massive order for high-end electronics, paid the initial deposit, and then disappeared when the final balance was due. The supplier was out over $50,000. The picture was becoming horribly clear. This wasn't about a lavish lifestyle. The sneakers and the game console were just pocket change. He'd had a plan. A stupid, reckless, ill-conceived business plan. He'd tried to be a big shot, to flip expensive electronics, and he had failed spectacularly. The bank loan wasn't for starting the business. It was to cover the massive debt he'd already incurred when it collapsed. He had forged my name to save his own skin. I felt a fresh wave of anger, but this time it was different. It was clearer, colder. This wasn't just a moment of weak desperation. It was a calculated series of disastrous decisions, built on lies. He had lied to his suppliers. He had lied to me. He had lied to our parents. He had constructed an entire fictional life and had tried to make me pay for its demolition. As I sat there, staring at the screen, my phone rang. It was that same unknown number from before. The one I now knew was Mr. Harrison. "Miss Vance," he said, and his voice was grim. The security footage came in. "It's grainy," and the man kept his head down, "but he matches your brother's general description, and he was at the loan officer's desk on the day the funds were dispersed." "Okay," I breathed. "So that's good." "It is," he agreed, "but I'm calling about something else. Your brother's lawyer contacted us. He's trying to make a deal. Liam is willing to admit to taking the money if the bank agrees not to press criminal charges. And if you agree to co-sign a new loan with him to settle the debt." I was speechless, the absolute, mind-bending audacity of it. After all this, after the lies and the fraud and the threats, his solution was to try and legally rope me into his mess. He wanted me to go from being his victim to being his partner. "Let me be perfectly clear, Mr. Harrison," I said, my voice shaking with fury. "You can tell his lawyer that is not going to happen. Not now, not ever. I will not sign a single thing that ties my name to his. I want my name cleared. And I want him held responsible, whatever that takes." "I thought that would be your answer," Mr. Harrison said, a note of respect in his voice. "I'll relay the message. Just be careful, Miss Vance. A man that desperate can be unpredictable." His words hung in the air long after the call ended. A chilling confirmation of the fear I had been trying to suppress. My brother was more than just a failure. He was becoming dangerous. The threats I had only imagined before now became terrifyingly real. It started with a phone call in the middle of the night, a gruff, unfamiliar voice. "Is this Liam?" "Who is this?" I asked, my heart pounding against my ribs. "You tell that son of a bitch we know where his sister lives." The voice rasped, and then the line went dead. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. I sat on my sofa with the lights on, jumping at every creak of the house. The anonymous car parked outside my house now seemed like a harbinger. These weren't the bank's investigators. These were the other people he owed money to, the people his failed business had cheated, loan sharks, angry suppliers. It didn't matter. They were real and they thought I was connected to him. My brother hadn't just put me in financial jeopardy, he had put me in physical danger. The next day, I went to a hardware store and bought new locks for my doors. As I was fumbling with the instructions, trying to replace the deadbolt on my front door, Ben called. "Hey," he said cheerfully, in the mood for some celebratory. "The bank confirmed you're not a forger." Coffee. My attempt at a laugh came out as a choked sob. "Ben, I couldn't finish." "Elara, what's wrong? Where are you?" "I'm at home," I whispered, trying to change my locks. "I'm on my way," he said immediately. "Don't move." He arrived 20 minutes later to find me sitting on the floor in my hallway, surrounded by screws and metal plates, crying in frustration and fear. He didn't say a word. He just took the screwdriver from my hand, read the instructions, and quietly, efficiently, installed the new deadbolt. Then he did the back door. When he was done, he made us both a cup of tea in my kitchen. "Talk to me," he said gently. I told him about the phone call, about the car, about my discovery of Liam's failed business. I told him how the fear was a constant, metallic taste in my mouth. "He didn't just take out a loan," I said, my voice trembling. "He's entangled with dangerous people, Ben, and he's dragged me right into the middle of it." Ben listened, his expression growing more and more serious. "Okay," he said when I was done. "This has gone way past a family dispute. You need to document everything, every text from your brother, every weird phone call, every car you see. Keep a log, dates, times, what was said. If anything else happens, you need to go to the police." The police, the thought terrified me. It was another line to cross, another level of escalation. "Yes, the police," he insisted. "This is harassment, maybe even extortion. What your brother did is a crime. Elara, what these people are doing is also a crime. You are not the person who should be scared, they are. You are the one on the right side of the law." His certainty was a balm on my frayed nerves. He made it sound so simple, so logical. While I was trapped in the emotional chaos of the situation, he saw the clear lines of right and wrong. He spent the rest of the afternoon with me. He helped me draft a formal, unemotional email to my parents. It stated my position clearly. I loved them, but I would not be discussing the situation with them further. I laid out the facts of Liam's fraud and the danger he had put me in. I told them their constant pressure was hurting me, and I needed it to stop. I didn't ask for their support. I simply stated the facts and set a boundary. Hitting send on that email felt like closing a door I wasn't sure I could ever open again. It was a huge step, a terrifying step, but for the first time, I felt like I was taking back control. I wasn't just reacting to Liam's chaos anymore. I was building a fortress around myself, one lock, one log entry, one email at a time. And I wasn't doing it alone anymore. Ben's quiet, steadfast presence was a shield. He made me feel brave enough to fight for myself. The email to my parents was met with a deafening silence. No angry reply from my mother, no disappointed text from my father. It was as if I had ceased to exist. In a way, it was a relief. The constant barrage of guilt had been exhausting. But the silence was also a confirmation of my worst fears. They had made their choice, and it wasn't me. My life settled into a strange new routine. Work, document, worry. I kept a small notebook with me at all times, jotting down license plate numbers of unfamiliar cars, noting the times of hang-up calls. It felt obsessive, paranoid, but it also gave me a small sense of agency. Ben checked in with me every day, a steady, reassuring presence in my digital life. His messages were often simple, thinking of you. How's it going today? But they meant the world to me. They were a constant reminder that I wasn't crazy and I wasn't alone. About a week after I changed my locks, Mr. Harrison called again. "Miss Vance," he said, and his voice had a new note of finality in it. "We've completed our internal investigation. We have the signature analysis, the security footage, and a record of your brother's non-cooperation and subsequent offer to you. The bank is prepared to absolve you of the loan. We will remove it from your name entirely and repair any damage to your credit report." The words I had been waiting to hear for weeks. A wave of relief so powerful it almost buckled my knees. "Oh my God," I breathed. Thank you so much." However, he continued, and my relief froze. The bank has been defrauded of a significant amount of money. We cannot simply write it off. Our legal department is recommending that we press criminal charges against your brother for fraud and forgery. My heart hammered in my chest. Criminal charges. This was no longer about money or credit scores. This was about Liam potentially going to jail. "I see," I said numbly. "There is one other option," Mr. Harrison said. "It's not standard procedure, but given the familial nature of the case, we are willing to offer it. We can arrange a final meeting, you, your brother, and your parents, here at the bank, with me, a final attempt at mediation. If, at that meeting, your brother signs a full confession and agrees to a legally binding repayment plan, the bank may be willing to forego criminal charges in favor of a civil settlement. It's his last chance to handle this without involving the district attorney. We would need your agreement to participate, a family meeting." A reconciliation dinner orchestrated by my mother had been a disaster. I couldn't imagine what a formal mediation at the bank would be like. It felt like a trap, a final opportunity for my family to gang up on me, to pressure me into some kind of compromise that would inevitably be at my expense. "Why do you need me there?" I asked. "Because you are the victim," he said simply. "Your presence is a reminder of the reality of the crime. It's harder for people to lie when the person they've wronged is sitting right across from them. And frankly, we need you to formally accept the resolution, but the choice is yours, Miss Vance. We can proceed directly to legal action if you prefer." I thought about it. My first instinct was to say no, to let the law take its course. He deserved it. But then I thought about my mother. As angry as I was with her, the thought of her visiting her son in prison was a pain I wasn't sure I wanted to inflict. This wasn't about saving Liam anymore. He was beyond my help. This was about choosing the path that would cause the least amount of collateral damage. A formal confession, a repayment plan that was accountability. It was a consequence he had earned, and maybe, just maybe, seeing him forced to admit the truth in front of our parents would finally make them see. "Okay," I said, my voice resolute. "I'll do it, I'll be there." My mother, predictably, took the bank's offer of a final meeting as a sign of hope, a chance for common sense to prevail. She called me for the first time since I'd sent the email. Her tone was no longer angry, but cloyingly sweet, as if the past few weeks of silence and hostile it had never happened. "Elara darling, isn't this wonderful?" she chirped. The bank is finally being reasonable. A chance for us all to sit down and sort this out like a family. Mom, this isn't a family get-together, I said, my voice flat. I refuse to be drawn into her fantasy. This is a mediation to avoid criminal charges for Liam, that's all it is. Don't be so negative, she chided gently. Your father and I have been talking to Liam. He feels just terrible about all this, truly. He's ready to apologize and work everything out. I didn't bother to ask if he felt terrible enough to have stopped the threatening phone calls or to admit to the other people he owed money to. I knew the answer. He was only sorry he got caught. I'll see you at the bank, Mom, I said, and ended the call before she could spin any more illusions. The night before the meeting, I couldn't sleep. I paced my living room, the same way I had in the very beginning, but something was different. Now, the fear was still there, a low thrum beneath the surface, but it was no longer in control. It had been replaced by a kind of weary resolve. I knew what I had to do. I had to see this through to the end. I thought about my relationship with Liam. I sifted through years of memories, searching for the good times, building forts out of blankets. Late night talks about our dreams. Him standing up for me when a kid pushed me on the playground. Where did that boy go? When did the charming dreamer curdle into a desperate, deceitful man? There was no single moment. I realized it was a slow erosion. 1,000 small compromises with the truth. A lifetime of being shielded from consequences by our parents, by me. I was grieving for the brother I thought I had. The one who had probably never really existed. Ben called me around 10 p.m. How are you holding up? He asked, nervous, I admitted. I feel like I'm preparing for a trial where my own family is the prosecution. You're not on trial, Alara, he said firmly. You're the star witness. All you have to do is sit there and be the undeniable truth. You've got this. What if they all turn on me? I whispered. Then you look at them, you remember everything they've put you through, and you let the bank do its job, he said. You don't have to fight them anymore. You just have to outlast them. I'll be right here if you need me. Call me before. Call me after. Call me during if you need to fake an emergency and escape. I laughed, a real laugh for the first time in what felt like ages. Thank you, Ben, really. Anytime. He said. Now try to get some sleep. You've got a big day tomorrow. After the call, I sat down and wrote a list, not of grievances or accusations, but of facts. Loan taken out in my name without my knowledge or consent. Signature forged, my life and safety put at risk. I am the victim. I folded the piece of paper and put it in my pocket. It was my armor. If I felt myself start to waver, to fall back into old patterns of guilt or responsibility, I would touch that piece of paper. It would be my reminder of the simple, unassailable truth. I went to bed and slept, a deep and dreamless sleep. The storm was coming tomorrow, but tonight, for the first time, I felt calm. The conference room at the bank felt even colder and more sterile than it had the first time. The air was thick with tension, a silent, humming energy that made the hair on my arm stand up. I arrived first, just as I had before. Mr. Harrison was there to greet me, his expression professionally neutral. Thank you for coming, Miss Vance. He said quietly, are you ready? I nodded, my hand instinctively go into the folded piece of paper in my blazer pocket. My parents arrived next. My mother rushed towards me, her arms outstretched for a hug. Alara, oh, thank goodness. I didn't flinch away, but I didn't return the hug either. I just stood there, a rigid statue in her embrace, until she awkwardly pulled away. My father stood behind her, his face grim, giving me a curt, almost imperceptible nod. They looked older, more tired than I had ever seen them. And then Liam walked in. He was flanked by a slick-looking lawyer in a suit that was too expensive for him. My brother looked terrible. He had lost weight, and there were dark circles under his eyes. He wouldn't look at me. He stared at the floor, at the wall, at his lawyer, anywhere but at my face. The charming, confident boy was gone. In his place was a hollowed-out man, radiating desperation. We all took our places around the polished table. Me and Mr. Harrison on one side, my family and the lawyer on the other. It was a perfect visual representation of the battle lines. Mr. Harrison began, his voice calm and authoritative. We are here today to discuss a serious matter. The fraudulent acquisition of a loan in the amount of $85,000. The The bank's investigation has concluded that Miss Alara Vance's signature was forged on the loan application. He paused, letting the words sink in. We have forensic evidence and corroborating security footage. Liam's lawyer cleared his throat. My client, Mr. Vance, is here today in good faith to resolve this unfortunate family misunderstanding. It was not a misunderstanding, I said, my voice cutting through the lawyer's smooth rhetoric. Everyone looked at me. I met my mother's pleading gaze, my father's stern one, and finally, I forced myself to look at Liam for the first time. He met my eyes. It was a crime, I continued, speaking directly to him. You stole from me, you used my name, and you put my life in jeopardy. Alara, please, my mother whispered. Mr. Harrison held up a hand. Miss Vance is correct. Let's be very clear about the situation. Mr. Vance, the bank is prepared to forward this file to the district attorney's office. The evidence is strong enough that they will almost certainly press charges for felony fraud and forgery. Conviction carries a potential prison sentence. Liam went pale. My mother let out a small gasp. However, Mr. Harrison continued, we have offered this one final alternative, a full, signed confession of guilt, and a legally binding repayment agreement for the full amount plus interest and fees. If you agree to these terms, today, the bank will handle this as a civil matter. He slid two documents across the table, a confession and a repayment contract. The choice is yours, Mr. Vance. The room was silent. Liam stared at the papers as if they were venomous snakes. His lawyer leaned in and whispered furiously in his ear. My father just watched his son, his face a mask of stone. My mother was openly weeping now, her hand clutching my father's arm. This is an outrage, the lawyer finally said, puffing out his chest. You're trying to coerce my client. I'm trying to keep your client out of prison. Mr. Harrison countered, his voice like ice. He had 60 seconds to decide. All eyes were on Liam. He looked trapped, a cornered animal. He looked from the papers to his lawyer, then to his parents' distraught faces. He looked at me, and in his eyes I saw it all. The shame, the resentment, the flicker of hatred. For me, the one who had refused to let him get away with it, it was a mistake, he stammered, his voice raspy. I was going to pay it back, I told her. Did you tell her about the failed business, Liam? I asked quietly. Did you tell her you were paying off angry creditors who started making threatening phone calls to my house? My parents' heads snapped towards me. What my father demanded, that's enough, Liam's lawyer said sharply. No, I said, standing up. My chair scraped against the floor. It's not enough. For weeks I have been the villain of this story, the cold, unforgiving sister, but I am the victim, and I am done being silent. I looked at my parents. He lied to all of us. He built a house of cards and, when it started to fall, he tried to pin it to me. He didn't care if I lost my home, my career, my safety. He only cared about himself. Then I looked back at Liam. So you can sign those papers, and you can take responsibility for what you did, for once in your life, or you can go to jail. But either way, I am done. I am done cleaning up your messes. I am done paying for your mistakes. I sat back down, my body trembling. The truth was out, all of it. There was nowhere left for him to hide. Liam stared at me for a long, silent moment. Then he slumped in his chair, defeated. He picked up the pen. I'll sign, he whispered. And he did. He signed the confession. He signed the repayment plan. He signed away the rest of his life to pay for his crime. The sound of the pen scratching on the paper was the loudest thing I had ever heard. The aftermath was not a celebration. There was no triumphant music, no feeling of victory, just a hollow, quiet emptiness. After Liam signed the papers, my family and their lawyer were ushered out of the room. My mother wouldn't look at me. My father's face was unreadable. Liam looked like a ghost. Mr. Harrison stayed with me. It's over, Miss Vance, he said gently. The loan will be formally expunged from your records within 48 hours. We will handle the collections with Mr. Vance directly. You are free. The word sounded foreign. I had been living in this state of crisis for so long, I wasn't sure I knew what to do with freedom. I thanked him, my voice hoarse, and walked out of the bank into the afternoon sun. I didn't go straight home. Instead, I drove to a park overlooking the city and sat on a bench. I took the folded piece of paper out of my pocket and read it one last time. I am the victim. I wasn't anymore. The crisis was over now. The healing had to begin. In the weeks that followed, life slowly began to find a new normal. The threatening calls stopped. The strange cars disappeared. I started to sleep through the night again. Work became easier. The creativity that had abandoned me slowly trickled back. I finished the logo for my client and they loved it. It felt like a small, personal victory. My relationship with my parents remained fractured. My mother called once, a week after the meeting. Her voice was subdued. He has to pay them. Back over 15 years, she said flatly. He had to get a second job. It wasn't an apology, but it was a tacit admission that I had been right. It was a start. My father still hadn't called. I knew it would take time. Maybe years, maybe forever. I had to accept that. Liam and I had one final conversation. He called me from a blocked number a month after the meeting. I just wanted to say. He started, his voice strained. / You were right. About all of it. I'm sorry for everything. It wasn't the eloquent, soul-bearing apology you see in movies. It was broken and pathetic and probably as much as he was capable of, and I realized something sitting there on my sofa. I didn't need his apology to move on. My healing wasn't dependent on his remorse. I hope you get the help you need, Liam, I said, and I meant it. Goodbye. I hung up. / It wasn't forgiveness. / It was closure. / My relationship with Ben, however, was just beginning. He had been my rock through the entire ordeal. He'd celebrated the small victories with me and listened to the fears. One sunny afternoon, he asked me out, not for coffee as colleagues, but on a real date. We went to dinner at a small Italian restaurant. We talked for hours, about everything and nothing, about work and dreams and families, both the broken and the whole. It was easy, it was normal, and it was wonderful. As I look back on it now, I see that the forged signature was just the catalyst. It was the event that forced me to see the truth that had been there all along. The truth about my brother's weakness, my parents' denial, and my own strength. I had to burn down the life I thought I had in order to build a new one. A life where my peace of mind is the most valuable asset I own. A life where I am the sole signatory. A life that is authentically, unapologetically, and finally, my own.